The month of May is such a special month for the Unashamedly You podcast, and it is because we celebrate moms and motherhood every single week for the entire month. I love this month of podcast, and I know that so many of you absolutely love and glean so much from this month as well. And with Mother's Day being right around the corner, you guys, I have exactly what you want. And it just so happens that they are running an amazing sale for this month. You want complete organic and natural skincare that actually works. Adriel Organics is located on a farm in central Arkansas. They are a nature provided skincare with an emphasis on quality and results. You guys, this skincare is truly universal. It is skincare that you can use on every skin type, and it addresses a multitude of skin concerns. Brittany, the founder of the company, will actually even make a skincare line that fits your exact needs. If you have a known allergy, that is something that I personally loved about the skincare line, that you can contact her. She knows exactly what goes in every ingredient that she uses. So if you needed something removed, if you needed something added, she can do it for you guys. She has worked tirelessly to keep these formulations as simple and as possible, just as nature intended. I love the entire line, but as someone that has eczema, and I actually have it around my eyes really bad. It is in a spot that hurts so much. I can tell you personally that the eye product has been a game changer for me. So go check them out on their social and go to their website. It's at adrelorganics.com or Drill Organics. Make sure to tag us when you order and when you use it so we can know how much you love the skincare as well. It does not matter if you are a mom, grandmother, mom to be, dog mom, cat mom, fish mom. You want this for Mother's Day, and you need to go on their website while they are running this huge sale, adrelorganics.com, and grab some. Hello, and welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast, a space to enlighten, encourage, and empower you to go out and unashamedly be who God is calling you to be. I am your host, Jamie Herndon. I pray you hear less of me and more of Him as you listen to today's episode. Let's grow together. We have such a special guest here today. I admire this lady with my whole heart. And I'm not sure if she even listened to a podcast a few weeks ago that was with Sarah Long, but she is actually who I was talking about whenever I had mentioned that I knew someone that did not act like what they have gone through. She is so full of faith. She radiates not just positivity, but the presence of the Lord. Honestly, if you've ever been around her, you can feel the presence of the Lord with her. She is actually my sister's mother in law. So I am so blessed to have her really close to me. I love her so much, and I know that if you know her, you love her, and if you don't know her yet, you are gonna love her by the time this podcast is over. Sheila Townley, what a privilege to have you here with me today. If you'll just take a moment and tell us a little bit about you and some of the things that you have going on.
Thank you, Sister Jamie. It is a privilege to be here and all the kind things that almost made me cry. But I do pray, and I have prayed before this podcast that I could be a blessing to someone, something that I would say would be an encouragement. My name is Sheila Townley, and I live in Sherwood, Arkansas. I attend the First Pentecostal Church in North Little Rock. I have two beautiful children. I have a daughter that is beautiful and precious to me. She has been a rock to me, especially in the last couple of years of my life when I really needed somebody. She is so talented. She can do so many things, and she didn't get that from her mama, but I'm so proud of her and her accomplishments in the work of God, the kingdom of God. And I'm certainly proud of my son, Corey, and the accomplishments he has made in life with his business and using his talents for the Lord, being used in the work of the kingdom. He's very talented. He's a very talented drum player. I'm thankful that through the years he's been able to use that for God. And he and his wife have given me the greatest gifts in the world, of course, my grandchildren, but I do wanna mention my daughter-in-law. She is so precious, and I love her so much, beside being beautiful, and, she's a very special person to put up with my son. But I know all about that, and I tell her, sometimes that I know what she's going through, that she is precious, always so good to me and so kind and so sharing with the children and the activities that they do in their life. They always include me, and that means a lot to me, especially where I'm at in life right now. And of course, my two beautiful grandbabies. Cora is 8 years old, and she was just my little baby doll when she was born. I had so much fun dressing her up, and we all did, I think. Her little ruffles and bows, and she has been such a joy and so much fun. And then Alice is 5 years old. And if any of you know Alice, well, you know Corey when he was a baby because he is so much like my son, Corey. He looks like my son when he was young. He also acts like him. And it's just like I got to start over and raise my little boy, Corey, all over again. So I have a lot of fun with him. They are both such a wonderful addition of joy to my life. And I thank the Lord for my family and all that He's given me so far. I know the best is yet to come.
It's funny mentioning Alice looking like Corey because he does, he looks just like him, he acts just
He
like him,
does.
it's so funny.
He does.
Oh, he's going, going, going 24/7, and then he can just sit there and stare.
Yes. And not hear you when he doesn't want to hear you.
That's Corey through and through, and yes, Cora is a lot of fun, we've all had fun with her. She is all very, very girly and
Yes.
wants to dress up and all the things, but
But
she is all out there like her mother.
that is exactly right, exactly right.
She's not
Can
gonna
be a little
lose.
bit I hesitate to say that, a little bit tomboyish. I mean, Maura's not a tomboy now, she's a grown lady and has her family, but I think from what stories that I've heard in the past, she was a little tomboy, and I could see that part in Cora too, that sometimes I say she's 8 years old going on 16, because sometimes she'll just sit and talk to me across her legs, and she's just doing her little hand, and it's just like, "Oh my goodness." I can see the teenager in her already.
It's already there. For sure. They are my niece and nephew as well, so, of course, we could talk about them all day, we love them. We do use the month of May to reflect on motherhood and encourage moms to be, mothers, grandmothers, any part of motherhood for the month of May on the Unashamedly You podcast. And honestly, I could not think of someone better to start off this month than someone who has been in all of these stages. I told her I've heard her speak off and on, like in just little bitty segments, and she only talks for just a couple minutes and then she'll be handing the mic off to someone else. And every single time I think, "Why did she not keep on? It was so good." And you got to do a little bit last year whenever you introduced Sister Johnette and Sister Mandy Holmes, for a mother thing that we had done at the church. And I wanted to hear more of what you had to say. It was amazing. So just share a little bit with us, maybe your journey on becoming a mom and a couple things about motherhood that you know.
Well, Sister Jamie, I think, that God puts a special thing in all of our hearts, our little girly hearts. And I can remember when I was a little girl, how I would play babies. I was raised poor. I didn't have a whole lot of toys, but my baby dolls were my special gifts, and how I would wrap them up and I would dress them and I would play like I took them to church and I would give them a bottle and sometimes I would spank them. All the nurturing things, it's just born in us. And I think as little girls that we all dream of growing up and getting married and wearing that big white poofy dress and going down the aisle, marrying, getting married, and having our own babies. So, I've watched, I remember my childhood and I watched Elena in her early childhood, with her little baby dolls and the strollers and the bottles and the diapers and it's just in us girls. We just have that special nurturing in us that God put there for us to become mommies. And now I'm getting to watch Cora, and it's so cute to watch her. And I don't just get to watch her, I have to play dolls with her, It's not allowed for me not to be, in the playtime. And so we play babies, and it's just so much fun changing their clothes and changing their diapers and doing all the fun things. But it just lets God puts a special thing in the hearts of little girls and young ladies and preparing us for motherhood. We just have that nurturing, it just comes natural for us. You know, as a young lady, I married. I probably don't need to say this, but, for you young ladies that may be listening, um, you don't need to do this, but I got married the week I turned 17, and so I was still a very young lady. And, but that exciting day came, and, we married, and it was probably a couple of years until we really felt like, you know, we're ready for a baby. We're ready for, I was ready to be a mommy, and, my husband was ready to be a father, and, so we began, to think about that happening, and then but 9 years later I still I was not mommy and he was not daddy. And so I would address, some ladies that are out there that are struggling with fertility and struggling with, becoming that mother that you desire to be. I know how that feels. It's like a lack of fulfillment. You just feel like you need that to fulfill that feeling inside of you. And so I know how you feel and what you're going through. But I also know a God of miracles. And if he doesn't provide you with a natural childbirth baby, there are ways that God can bless you. Sometimes we pray and we ask God for things, and we don't know how he's going to answer that prayer. Sometimes it doesn't come just exactly the way we think that it's going to come. And so on to Corey. Corey is my little adopted boy. And what a joy and fun he has been all of his life. We got a phone call early one morning, and it was from my sister-in-law, my husband's sister. They, her and her husband pastored a church in Missouri. They had a lady in their church that had come in and received the Holy Ghost, and she had a younger sister that was very young, was going to be giving birth to a baby, and just at that point in life, felt like I'm just not mature enough. I'm not ready, and to take on the responsibility of raising a child. And her mother and dad, felt like they were too up in age, to take on that responsibility also. So this lady, which is Corey's aunt, began to pray. And she said, God, if my sister's going to give her baby up, she said, would you please, please let this baby be placed in a Pentecostal home with parents that will teach him truth? And so, um, this call that we received early in the morning was from my sister-in-law, and she said, "Do y'all want a baby?" And we said, "What?" And my husband was on the phone, and I could tell him he was just perplexed, and he said, "Well, we had just kinda started thinking about and considering adoption, but hadn't really told anybody or hadn't shared that with anybody." And, he said, well, let us talk a minute and let us pray. And so it wasn't long till we called her back and we said, yes, we want a baby. Well, Corey was born, and all we knew about Corey was he was a boy and he had colic. And so I thought, well, I don't know what to do for colic, and, here you this new mommy excitement, and you're thinking, I don't even know what to feed him, what am I, you just go through all, and then you go through this, well, will I love him like he was my flesh and blood? What, how will I feel, you know? And, the story goes on, and were able to adopt him. He did have a little bit of Indian in him, so we had to go through having the Indian rights annulled because they had first right at adoption. But, we did have that annulled, and, he actually was born in a Catholic hospital. His grandparents were of the Catholic faith. Um, no, nothing bad against Catholic people, but he would have been raised in the Catholic faith. Because he was born in the Catholic hospital, we were not allowed to go on the premises because we were going through a private adoption. Actually, papers had already been drawn up for Corey to be adopted to a Catholic family at that time, but a baby can't be adopted out until it's born. So, through the faith and the prayer of this aunt, I felt like God placed his hand on Corey before he was ever born. God had a plan for his life. And so graciously, God placed him in our hands. But we were not allowed, as I was saying, to go on the premises of the hospital to pick him up. So his grandparents picked him up from the hospital and told us where that they would meet us. So we met, this sounds funny. We met in Kroger's parking lot on Lovett Boulevard in Houston, Texas, and that's where we picked him up, and we've loved it ever since we got him, ever since we got it. I said, what a name on Lovett Boulevard," and we did fall in love with him. I mean, this when I first seen him, it was just like he was mine, and it was meant to be. And, I became a mommy, and it was a strange way to become a mommy, and it was sad. The grandparents, they asked to have a moment with him, and they had him dressed in a little white ball suit. It had a little white, uh, basketball or football, maybe it was a football, on the top of his little shirt, and his little hair was sticking straight up on top of his head, and he was real slim because he had had colic and was throwing up and spitting up all of his food, his formula. And so he wasn't filled out, but, oh, I was so excited and just so in love with him, and I'm telling you, we took him everywhere to show him off. We left there, and we went by our church, and we showed everybody at the church, and we went to my mother's, and all my family came, and then we drove around, and we would just anybody that would even walk by the car was, "Look at our baby boy." We were so happy and so proud. So there are ways that God can answer your prayers. It may not be what you expect or even what you ask for, but God has a way of bringing things into your life that you desire and even that you need for fulfillment in your life. And then after 4 years of having little Corey running around and he had a speech impediment. It was so funny. He couldn't say his name. Every time he would say his name, the people wouldn't understand him. They'd say, "What's your name?" He'd say, "Corey." And they'd say, "Harvey." And he'd stomp his little foot and say, "Mama, tell him what my name is." So even when he started kindergarten, he said, "Mama, will you go to school with me and tell my teacher what my name is?" So, it was just funny, and, he was just a joy, and I'll have to tell this on him before I move on. Also, when he was about 4 or 5 years old, we were pastoring and our church, we had a worship in church. I mean, those men, they would run the aisles and Corey would get out and run the aisles. And I would say, "Baby, I don't mind you running the aisles if you're not playing, but if you're just playing, I'm afraid you're going to get knocked down or you're going to cause somebody else to fall. I just don't want you playing." And he said, "Mama, but I feel it in my stomach." And so that has been a joke for a long time about if he's doing something, well, you better feel that in your stomach. So I told him, "Okay, baby, it's as long as you feel it in your stomach, you can run the aisles and worship, but you better feel it in your stomach." But anyway, he has been such a joy. And then after 4 years, a big surprise happened, thinking by this time that I would never have a child of my own, as far as my own flesh and blood, give birth to a child. we had taken a new pastorate, and I just got really sick. I was throwing up, and I was sick at my stomach, nauseated, and, certain smells would just make me run to the bathroom. I had to throw up. I was just so sick, and I just tried, different things. I didn't know what was wrong with me. So my husband, he said finally told me, he said, "You just need to go to the doctor." So I went, and, he told me he thought I was expecting a baby, and I was just I just couldn't believe it. It's just like when the Lord does something for you, you ask for it and you pray for it, but when it happens, it's like, "My goodness, I can't believe that it happened?" So, my husband was out in the waiting room, and he said when I come out, I had on a red dress and my face was just as red as my dress. And he said that I was just stuttering all over myself, and he said, "Well, what did the doctor say?" And he thinks, well, but I know it's not true. I just know I'm not. I just know, but he thinks I'm gonna have a baby, and he said, "What? He thinks you're gonna have a baby?" So, anyway, back then, they couldn't tell you immediately that whether you was expecting or not. You had to wait. I think we had to wait like 3 days to get the news whether, I was or wasn't. And so I know remember that we had went on a hospital call, to visit someone that was in the hospital, and it was the day that we was supposed to check, and I told my husband, "I'm not calling the doctor's office. I know I'm not expecting, and I'm just not gonna call. If you wanna call, you just call." So he went and called my doctor's office, and my doctor said, "Mr. Townley, are you sitting down?" He said, "No, but I can if I need to." He said, "Well, you're gonna be a daddy." He said, Y'all are expecting a baby." So, what an exciting time in my life that God fulfilled, my dreams and my vision and my prayers and, uh, gave me a boy and a girl. How wonderful was that? Some people have 5 boys and they don't ever get a little girl. Some people have 5 girls and don't ever get a little boy. So I felt like I was really blessed to get my little boy and my little girl. And, I did have some complications and had to be on bed rest for a while, but the Lord took care of it all, and so I gave birth to a beautiful little girl that looked just like her daddy. You sit around and you try to think about, "I wonder what my baby will look like." I know you probably have, Sister Jamie, and other young ladies that are, young mothers that are having babies. I wonder what this one's gonna look like. Well, never in my dreams did I think she would look so much like her daddy, that she really did look just like her daddy, that she was beautiful to me and just absolutely a little doll, and, had so much fun with her, dressing her up, and I, uh, I made her poofs in her hair. When her hair got long enough, poor little thing, she lived in rollers. She always had rollers in the front of her on the front of her head. She always had rollers. And, because she had to have a poof every day, because that was the thing back then was the curly poofs. And she she used to tell me, "Mama, when I get big, I ain't never gonna have a poof." And that was true. When she got big, she doesn't ever wear a poof. For many years, she has not had a poof. But she survived. She lived through the poofs, and she lived through the big ruffled dresses because that's what was in back then was the princess style ruffled dresses that stood out and you twirled around, looked like a little princess, and that's not in now, but that's what was in back then, and I don't think she liked any of that either, but she lived through all of it. And you did too. Yeah, a lot of little girls did. But anyway, God gave us a miracle boy and a miracle girl, really. So my children both are miracles, and I'm just, so thankful for them.
I know that this is such an encouragement to every mom, and especially, like you said, moms that are praying for that miracle. So, really, you were married for 13 or 14 years,
Well, I was married 9 years. He was born, at
but
a ter
before you got pregnant with and before you were expecting Delana.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So, you had been married
Like
13 or 14
yeah, about
years
12 or 13 years at that time when I had Delaney.
when you had Delana.
Mhm.
So, God is still a God of miracles even today, and
Yes,
I
he
love
is.
that story and love Delana and Corey, and yes, Delana looks like a Townley through and through.
It was funny when we evangelized, people always said, "Your son looks just like you, and Delana looks just like her daddy," and I never would say any different.
Well, it's the same with us. Mara's actually adopted as well, which was really cool. There's some crazy story about Mara and Corey right now that I'll just insert this. So Mara was adopted. She came to live with our family when she was around 11 or 12 years old. And then she came to live with us and she just stayed. Like she never went back. She was always our sister. And then she met Corey, and so they were both adopted. Both of their middle name is Lane. It's Mara Lane and Corey Lane, and it's spelled the same.
Spelled the same.
And then your name, and then Mara's biological mom's name, they're both Sheila.
Uh-huh. Isn't that something?
It is so
I know,
crazy.
it just was meant to be, wasn't it?
It was definitely meant to be. It was just so wild. And then talking about some people get all of one and, not to get a boy and a girl. So my parents had they actually my mom birthed 4 girls. She lost her first daughter. And then we adopted Mara, and my dad was like, "I cannot even get a boy, from adoption." He's like, all I'm stuck with is girls, girls, girls."
Girls, girls.
And
Well,
yeah.
there's a special thing about whatever the Lord blesses you with, if it's all boys or all girls, it's a blessing and you'll enjoy every minute of their life. But it is nice, to have one of each.
My sister just had her 3rd girl, and she was really hoping for that boy because we had 2 girls, and then we got Ezra, and Mara has a little boy, and so she just knew her 3rd one was gonna be like mine, and she was gonna have that boy, and she's like, "I'm gonna have 3 girls." I said, "We had all girls, and we had a blast." I was like, "It's fun having all girls. It'll be fine."
Mhm.
So let me ask you this, what surprised you the most about becoming a mother for the first time? Because like we said, there's a lot of surprises that come along that you just don't know what to expect.
Well, I think one of the things that really surprised me is that I had enough love for everybody. I felt like, well, I loved God with all my heart. I loved my husband with all my heart. I loved Corey, and I didn't, I told you I felt like, how will I feel toward a child that, I didn't give birth to? I loved him with all my heart. And then when I became expecting Delana, I thought, Lord, I love Corey so much. How will I love another baby that much? And then Delana came, and I loved her with all of my heart. It's amazing, you know, we had the love of God in us, and it's just abounds and abounds and abounds. You never run out of love, whether it's to your family or to those around you. You just keep giving and giving, and it never runs out. And I'm just thankful that, I realized, wow, you know, this is wonderful. There doesn't have to be any favorites. I would hate for my children to grow up feeling like one was more important to me or more loved by me than the other. That would be terrible. And for God just to balance and even everything out and make it so beautiful. You know, when when you get a new baby, along with that love comes patience that you didn't know you had, enduring patience, and that nurturing, it just comes right along with it. That selflessness, although it is important for us to have you know, take time for ourselves and do things for ourselves, still, your life becomes wrapped around it's all about those babies and your husband, you know? And so that love it just seemed like it just comes along with it. You just say, it's not about me getting a new dress, it's that baby. Ooh, I want her to have all the ruffles. I mean, I'd go in the store and look for the dress that had the most ruffles on it. That's the one I wanted. And it just becomes more about them and less about you. And and that's not a bad thing. I think that is something that is wonderful. On the funny side, I would say a surprising thing to a new mother may be that the little plastic baby dolls that they play with, that never really cried and never really messed up their diaper and never spit up, that when they get their real baby doll and it's alive, that it cries so much that you have you're sleep deprived, that, life becomes a reality. It's no longer playing with baby dolls. It's the real deal, and you may be surprised sometimes about how heavy that responsibility can be. That may be a surprise to you. Your babies, you can rock them like a baby doll, they don't make no noise, they don't cry, but that real baby, it does cry, and there's sickness, and there's nights that you stay awake and you walk the floor, you don't get the sleep that you need. When you change their diapers, it really needs to be changed, and when you give them a bottle, many times they'll spit up or throw up. You can just liken it to, "Hey, life has become a reality. I am no longer playing baby dolls. I got the real deal going on here."
The real deal. I remember praying. I sat on the edge of our bed. Ada was screaming, crying. I did not know what to do with her. And it was just all night long, and I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, rocking her back and forth as fast as I can, and Bishop Holmes had just started preaching on the prayer that he said that he always prays, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and I would be rocking her so hard on the edge of that bed, I could just see myself right now, and I would be praying, "And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much. God, I need your wisdom. I need your understanding. I need your wisdom," and it'd be in the middle of the night. So,
It
I
does.
prayed that prayer all the time. I think Bishop was praying it for totally different reasons, but it was really fitting motherhood for me.
Didn't and, it does take a lot of prayer, and it does take a lot of wisdom to raise children, from babyhood all the way up. It
I was
takes
gonna say
a
it
lot of
never
prayer and
stops.
wisdom. It never stops. Even when they're grown, you still are concerned about every aspect of their life, you never lose that.
How did motherhood change the view of yourself and how you saw yourself?
Well, I would say that I had very low self-esteem. And motherhood, I think it brought out some good things in me. It made me feel like, I am important. I am needed. Um, I can make a difference. I can make a difference in the atmosphere of my home. I can make a difference in my children's lives, in my husband's life. Um, Someone is depending on me. You know, I'm needed, and I have a purpose. I think it took away some of my low self-esteem. It gave me some confidence to kinda step up to the plate and say, "I am a mother, I am a wife, I have a duty to fulfill, and I wanna do my best at doing that." And so I would just to sum it up, that would be what I would say. I think it brought me out of a shell that I was in and, kinda just gave me a different perspective of life.
Well, like you said, you're needed, like someone's counting on you. And I think that's one of the greatest parts about motherhood is you just feel that duty and that sense of I am everything to these children,
True.
especially whenever they're babies. I'm getting to the stage with Ada where I am everything to her right now because my debit card is everything to her. I kind of feel sometimes like I'm in more of that stage than, just light up, her eyes light up because I walked in the room. But it does, you're everything to them, and it is a special thing and a special way to feel. How do you navigate guilt or pressure in motherhood? Because that is a real thing. We've talked some Matt and I've talked a lot about, like, mom guilt that comes and all those things that, it's just a real thing, but there's also this thing called parental pressure, and it is so real. Matt said, "I never knew any pressure growing up like parental pressure that I have today."
Yes. Yes, we do. We are overloaded with pressure in our mothering and fathering years. We really, really are. Um, I would tell a young mother not to be too hard on herself. She is going to make some mistakes. We all do. Um, Amazingly, our children survive those mistakes. And, I can look back and I have regrets and I have, something I could say I feel guilt. I wish I would have done this better, or I wish I would have been more knowledgeable about, a certain area, something they went through, or a certain timeline of their life, and I feel like we all, at some point of time, feel like we're not enough. We can buy them everything in the world to make them happy, and our soul desires we want our babies to be happy, it's hard not to give them too much, because that is not good for them. But, we want them to have everything they want, we want them to have good friends and happy times and just everything to be one but we can do everything to the best of our ability and still feel like at times it's just not enough. And that reminds me of a story in the Bible about the little boy that came to Jesus. And when Jesus needed to feed the multitude, the little boy came up and he just had a lunch. And it only had five, the Bible says, five small loaves of bread in it and two fish. And no doubt his mother packed him that lunch that morning before he left. She didn't know what kind of needs he was gonna come in contact with. She didn't know what he was gonna need for that day, but she probably wondered when he left, "I wonder if I packed enough in his lunch. I wonder if I put enough in there." And, so when he got to Jesus, I'm paraphrasing, but Jesus might have said, "Son, let me see what your mother put in your lunch. We've got 5,000 people sitting on the hillside that need to be fed." And, oh, I'm sure the little boy said, "Oh, I don't have enough to meet that need." But I could just hear Jesus say, let me see what's in your lunch pail." And as he looked, uh, it was only the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fishes. And the disciples said, "It's impossible. There's no way." And Jesus said, "Son, let me have what your mother gave you this morning. I think I can do something with that. I can work a miracle with what your mother put in your lunch box today." And we know the story how Jesus took that. He took that it was good stuff, but it wasn't enough. And he broke it, and he broke it, and he multiplied it, and he multiplied it until it met the need of 5,000 people, and there was even leftovers for more. And how many times do we feel like, as mothers, that we're just not enough? We pray for them every day, and we pray with them, and we try to instill the Word of God in them and godly principles in them, and we try to teach them respect and to honor their elders, and to talk right and to act right and to choose the right friends. And every day when they leave our home, you may not stop and think about it, but you have put something in their little pocket, and they're leaving home with something that you gave them. And sometimes it might not be something that you said, but it might be some actions, the way you live. Actions speak louder than words. And when your child sees you praying and sees you on fire for God and sees you living right and making the right decisions, and they see how you react to situations that could cause you to act in anger, they're hiding those little things. There's little nuggets they're putting in their pocket. And like I said, doing the best that we can do as mothers, there's always going to be times when we feel like, "God, I've done all that I feel like I can do. And Lord, I fail sometimes, but I'm doing the best I can. And I don't feel like that I'm putting enough in them to go out and face the needs of the world, you know? But I just want to encourage ladies today, just keep putting good stuff in your children. Just keep praying for them and with them. Keep putting little nuggets of good stuff in them. When they get out there, and you're going to be surprised at the miracle that God works with what you put in their lives. And you didn't think it was significant, but you put some good things in there. You gave God something to work with. And so when they come up against a need, they're gonna pull out what mama gave them and daddy. I don't wanna leave him out, but we're talking about mothers today. But they're gonna pull out the lunch that you packed them, and it's gonna be amazing to you what God does with what you gave them in their life. How many of our children supersede what we've ever done? I know my children have. And, it's I just want to believe that I gave them something good that God was able to bless and multiply and make it bigger and better than I've ever seen or known. So, and one more tip that I do want to leave for mothers that are stressed out, and this is talking about being stressed out. And young mothers are under a lot of pressure. But one thing that I would tell this to any young mother, if you want to take a lot of stress out of your life, be prepared ahead of time for every situation, for every church service. You kind of know what you're going to do every day. If you think back, if you stop and think, when you get frustrated, when you raise your voice in anger, when you lose your patience, it's when you're in a hurry. It's on a Sunday morning when you have not prepared. You don't know what your kids are going to wear to church. You can find one shoe, but you can't find the other. You can't find the bow that matches the dress. Uh, it's wrinkled and it needs to be ironed. Um, you don't know what kind of snack you're gonna give them for breakfast. You haven't thought and you haven't prepared ahead of time. The devil will steal your victory, and you will be so stressed out. If it's a church service you're preparing for, by the time you get there, your victory's gone. You need to pray through. And and you're probably running late because you didn't prepare ahead of time. If you wanna take a lot of stress, and even you and your husband will be angry at each other because that's just how the devil works. If you will plan ahead of time, if you know you're going somewhere, if you know there's a church service, if you know there's an activity, if you have a young baby, go ahead and pack that diaper bag. Go ahead and lay those clothes out. Go ahead and iron them if they need to be ironed. Go ahead and prepare. Make sure that you can find 2 shoes and the bow that matches the dress. You're taking a lot of stress, and that's for every situation. That's for school. Why wait till 7:30 on a school morning and, you don't even know what you're gonna put in their lunch is, a sandwich or if you're gonna send them a lunch. You don't know where their uniforms are or if they need to be ironed or there's just so many things that can be planned and thought out ahead of time that will take pressure and stress, and you won't when you get to school, if you've got angry and you've lost your patience and you've raised your voice, then you feel that guilt. Oh, you look at your babies and sometimes you have to say, "I'm so sorry," "We just got in a rush and, I," or maybe you didn't feel good that day, whatever, and be quick to apologize to your children. I think that's important. But you don't wanna sit down or go to a church service and sit down and say, "Oh, I feel so bad, my husband's upset with me, I didn't have things in order, and my children, I raised my voice, I really feel like I hurt their feelings, and, it really wasn't their place to have it together, it was mine, and I failed," and guilt, and that pressure and that stress. So one of the main things you can do is prepare ahead of time. That's my tip for the young mothers.
That is such a good tip. And it is so true. It's usually only whenever you're in a rush and you're feeling that anxiety and stress.
Yes.
And so you got to take it out on somebody. And the kid that can't help find their own shoes, they're getting it taken out on them, you know?
It happens that way. Well, when we evangelized, we started evangelizing back in the days where there was church every night. I remember when we churches started taking off Monday night, and we thought, "Ooh, what a joy to have one night off a week." And so when Corey was little and we were evangelizing, I mean, it was church, church, church every night. Well, you cannot wait till right before church and start. You gotta get up in the morning planning, "This is what we're gonna wear. I'm gonna take care of the ironing. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna prepare." So when we can walk out the door peacefully. So it does help to plan ahead. And one more thing I will say about that is don't put too much on your plate. You will have to say no sometimes. Your plate only holds so much. And if you get too much on your plate, you won't do good at any of those things that's on your plate. So be selective.
Man, that is so good. This last question right here could have been the whole podcast. I feel like everything you said is good, but oh my, The story about the boiled lunch has me crying, and then prepare ahead is just such a needed tip and so good. I really have completely changed my life by doing that.
Yes. It
I
will change your
get
life.
everything is done the night before and the day before. Like yesterday, they had to try on. Today is this week is 10X week at Calvary Academy, and there's something going on every single day. And so before the color run, they were supposed to wear white. We had everything they were going to wear was laid out the day before.
Mhm.
Today was decade day. Everything that they are gonna wear was they had to try it on, they had to set it all in the slot because, tomorrow's another day, and it's like
Yes.
each thing's gonna be something, and it's so nice whenever we have it, and I tell them before church services, this is a new thing with my girls. I'm like, "If you want a certain purse, then you need to go pack that purse right now. Find the purse you want now and pack it and have it ready for your outfit." Because otherwise it's 7 and they're in tears and they wanted this other purse and they can't find it, and
That's so wise, Sister Jamie. It really, really is. Because so many people, they can't control their anger because they put themselves in situations like not being prepared. That makes them lose, their self-control, and then they regret it.
right, and then you just being anxious and feeling that anxiety is I mean, first of all, it's not right. The
Mhm.
Bible tells us not to
Right,
do that.
right, right.
And so I had to learn within myself in order to not feel that. I hate to feel that way. I do
Oh, I
not like
I
that
hate it
anxious
too.
feeling. I love when we're walking out the door smooth sailing. I don't like going out on those rocky waters. And like you said, then you're mad at your husband. You can really be mad at everybody just because you did not prepare.
Right.
That's so wise and so good. And I'm not perfect at it, but I have learned that it has completely changed my life by doing those things. What advice would you give to maybe some new moms who are in the thick of raising those little babies?
How, to be prepared and not to put too much on your plate. And also, I would mention, there are different seasons in our life. And I think you should consider the season that you're in. If you've got babies or toddlers, sometimes we expect too much of ourselves because our main objective is to be a mother and a wife at that point in that season of our life. And sometimes we feel like we are maybe not even giving to God what we need. Now, there's never a time in our life that we don't need to pray, but there are seasons when we can pray more. The season I'm in right now, I can pray. I have more time. I can spend more time. And the devil will just beat us down sometimes like, oh, you haven't spent an hour in prayer. The church, they had a dinner and you didn't go help serve. Well, if you got babies and you got toddlers running around, don't subject yourself to that guilt and that bad feeling of feeling like, oh, I'm not what I need to be in the Lord. Um, your main objective in life right now is to be a good wife and to be a good mother. Noah saved his family. And if all of us saved our family, there wouldn't be anybody lost in the world. If every person in the world had truth, of course, and worked on saving their immediate family, there wouldn't be nobody. There wouldn't be no outreach. We wouldn't need any. You know, just focus on the revival in your own home and what you're instilling and them babies and training them and bringing them up. And don't be too hard on yourself. Don't carry the guilt, of feeling like, you just can't be everything everywhere all the time. I know when we evangelized, Corey was little. He was probably 1, and I would try to go to the prayer room an hour before prayer time because I just wanted to be a good evangelist wife, and I just wanted to get in there and pray for revival and pray for my husband to be anointed, and all the time, Corey was I could get very little out of the prayer. I was getting him off the walls and, tearing down the papers off the walls and, it I just and now I look back and think I was so hard on myself when I was in a different season that I couldn't contribute that much time, you know, but, so consider the season you're in.
That's so good. So true. I know that I have been in prayer meeting before, and, now I am in a season where especially whenever all 3 of my children are in school, so it makes it so nice, I mean, all throughout at some point during the day, you can go and you can have I mean, I can get 5 minutes in prayer more done now than I could have in 2 hours before Ezra started school. And I remember walking up and down before a prayer meeting and saying, "God, you see the sacrifice. Like, you see the sacrifice I'm making. You bless this sacrifice, Lord."
And the Lord honors that. He really does, and we don't need to doubt that. He does honor our sacrifice.
He does. So you may be in a season where that sacrifice of just showing up to prayer meeting and walking around telling your child, "No, no, 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 come here. Here, let's get a tissue." Doing anything you can to distract them.
So true.
That might be your season of all that you can do. But God, like you said, He sees it and He honors it. And you're putting more in that lunch than you think.
Yes, you are.
When you were talking about that, I thought, she just packed her everyday lunch. It was just that normal snack.
Just ordinary food.
And I
Nothing
thought
special.
the same thing is just those daily things we're putting in them. You're either doing something the Lord, you're either putting something in them the Lord could do something with, or you're not.
Right, that's right.
And how important for us moms to make sure that we're putting in as much as we can that God can bless and He can do something with. Well, I want some advice you would give to some preteens and some teen moms because that's kind of the stage I'm hitting. Not that I know how to raise the babies, but I feel like with Ezra, now he's totally different. They say every kid's different. They are all different.
And they are.
But I do think that maybe through that stage, you just realize, like, they are gonna survive, it is gonna be okay, like, I'm not as stressed about that, but then now Ada's reaching some new things. I don't know why our poor oldest children, they always reach the new things first, and you're stressed about the new stages they're gonna be coming up against. So that's where I am, so give me some advice.
Well, I would say, first of all, I would say run, run, run. But especially with a girl. But no, the Lord gave her to you, and He's gonna help you with every it's another season. Sometimes our seasons kinda intermix, you're going out of one season, but you're still partly in another season, but the Lord's gonna give you just what you need. But I would say one of the main things is be present for her. Be there for her. Try to be a friend and, sometimes as moms and dads, we feel like what we had to say is law and you just hush and do what I say. And sometimes I think that builds a resentment in our children toward us and our advice. I think being present and sitting down and listening, especially to a teenager, listening to what they have to say. Because sometimes we're not perfect and we do misjudge situations sometimes. And sometimes we feel like we know exactly what's going on and, that's not going to happen or whatever. Our teenagers need to feel like that I can sit down and talk to my mom or dad, and they're not gonna judge me, and they're not gonna be all up in my face, but they're going to listen to me, and we can reason together. You need to try to build a good enough relationship with your teen that if they make a mistake or if they fail, that the first person they want to run to is you, not run away from. you know, our kids, if they don't have good relationship with their parents, then when they fail, they wanna run away and hide, and they fall into deeper problems. But if we can form that good relationship of listening and being present, being a part of their life, um, considering their opinions, considering them in everything, and letting them know if you ever fail, I'm here for you. I've got your back. I love you. There's nobody in the world that loves you more than I love you. And there's nobody in the world that will pray for you with a burden like I will pray for you. There's nobody else. And so if you ever have a problem, if you ever get in trouble, you run to mama. I'm your safe place. I've got your back. And also, I could say we need to, support their dreams and visions, um, Ada's just getting to the place where I'm sure she's kinda thinking about what she might like to do in the future and where life will lead her, and, as long as it's godly dreams and visions, be a part of that, be excited with them, share that with her. But we do know that we also have to, monitor their friendships. I think this is a very important thing. You need to know who your children are hanging around with, because all that good stuff you're putting in them when you send them out the door, when you pack their lunch, if they're getting negative influence from friends that are bringing them down, well, they're just pouring that lunch out on the ground. And so you really need to monitor their friendships. You need to set some boundaries, and you need to be consistent with those boundaries. If it was no today, it's still no tomorrow. They don't need to guess what their boundaries are. They need to know what their boundaries are. They need to know what their boundaries are with their phone and a computer. They need to know what mom and daddy allows and what mom and daddy does not allow and will not tolerate. And another thing that I think is very important, your children, they are going to have fun somewhere, some way, somehow, they're children. And they are going to have friends. And we chose to have an open house policy when Corey and Delana were teenagers. Our house was always open for the young people to come to. And now that takes a little bit of work on on the mother and the dad. You wanna make sure your house is kinda clean, a little bit anyway, and you're gonna have to have some snacks in the icebox, you know, and it might put you out just a little bit. You're gonna have young people in your house till late, but would you rather them be in your house till 11 or 12, or over at somebody else's house and you're not sure what's going on, or at a restaurant, or hanging out around in their cars, or you don't know where they're at and who they're with? Would you rather have that? And so I think as our young people get older, we need to provide some fun things for it. We need to provide a safe place for them. Now, our kids did go to other people's house. They did do other things, but as a rule, our home was always open. I wanted to know who they were with, and I wanted to know what they were doing. And if they were gonna stay up till midnight, I wanted them to stay up till midnight at my house, you know? And so that's just something to consider. Make your home accessible to your children's friends, that they feel comfortable to bring them there, and that they know that, that you're okay with that. Pray for them, pray for them, pray for them, pray for them some more. Pray not just for them, but with them. Oh, what prayer does, what prayer can do, uh, and He can take care of every need, and there are needs in our teenagers' lives that they face a lot of things. They face a lot of peer pressure. They face the peer pressure from friends, even friends from church, that they've got to look a certain way. They gotta wear their hair a certain way. They got to, you know some of them are into name brand, and I'm not against name brand, but it's just things that they feel pressured about, and so they're feeling a lot of pressure, and we've got to be there to help shoulder that load and direct them and teach them what's important and what's not important, and teach them, you know what? We're living the best life. This is the best life. And you know what? We're having the best fun that anybody can have in this world. Those teenagers that are out in the world, oh, they may go out and party and have fun, but they're going to end up in jail. They're going to end up on drugs and alcohol, and their bodies are going to be ruined. They're going to end up in trouble, and, they're going to have a hangover in the morning. No telling what kind of damage they're going to do when they go out and have fun, but we get to go out and have fun. And I mean, do we ever have fun? I mean, I was raised in church all my life, and I remember our little young people, our parties and our games we played. I mean, we had so much fun and laughed, and we just had, I know, as much fun as anybody in the world could have, and it all in a godly atmosphere. And it was provided by my mother because she opened the doors. We had a lot of parties at my house. And we were poor. We didn't have we might have a hot dog or I mean, we didn't have a lot, but we could bring our friends there and we could have a party and play games and have the best time and have so much fun. And just teach them this is the best life. We've got the best church. We've got the best pastor. You've got the best mama and daddy and you've just got the best school and you can have the most fun. You don't have to go anywhere else to have fun. We can have fun in this best life that we're living.
So good. Such good advice and so true. I love everything you said. I'm going to listen to that little segment right there all the time. So good. And I love you did say pray, 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 pray for them, pray with them.
Yes, 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 yes.
God makes up the
Oh, he
difference.
does. He does. He makes up the difference.
I'm so thankful he does.
So
And then you are in the season you said of being a grandmother. Tell a little bit about maybe how that's different from parenting, and maybe a grandma's listening to this and there's a grandmother to be and wants some advice.
well, I don't know if I have good advice for grandmas because I spoil mine. One of the most fun things is getting to spoil them and send them home to mom and daddy. And, they'll Corey will tell me sometimes, if he knows that Cora acted out or also, "You need to spank them." And I said, "No, if you take care of business at home, then Nana don't have to do the spanking at Nana's house. Because when they come to Nana's house, we come to play and talk and have fun and do fun things." And, one thing as a grandmother, you have more time. When you're a mother, you enjoy your children. I mean, I enjoyed my children so much, but you're busy. There's so much on your plate and there's so much going on. And, you've got your husband and you've got a church in church activities and you've got school. And there's so much that sometimes you can't just spend the time like a grandmother can spend. And so I'm enjoying that time where I can just really sit down and focus and listen and be a part of their conversation and a part of their play. I also, on the spiritual side, I pray that I can put something spiritual in them. I want to teach them that I tell Cora all the time, Cora, I know you got the Holy Ghost, baby, but you gotta get it every day. Every day, you gotta pray and speak in tongues. Every day, every day. Then I try to put little things in 'em. Sometimes I'll tell them a Bible story. I told them about Rahab, and the scarlet cord, that she hung in the window and her house was saved, and so I got a little a red yarn, and I tied it around their arms, and they slept in that night, and, um and we reiterated the story, a time and I said, "We put the blood of Jesus over our doorpost and the name of Jesus, and we're protected, and God has got his hand on us." And then a few days later, they came over and they said, "Nana, Nana, where's our red string? Where's our red string?" So it had really stuck with them. And sometimes we'll have little prayer meetings together. And of course, we always play church. And I have to preach, I'm the preacher. I said, "Corey, I'm not a preacher." "Yes, you are, Nana, preach." So I preach and they have little microphones, and so they're on their microphones and they're singing and they're shouting and I'm preaching and sometimes I'll try to project little things in there, that would that would inspire them. And so as grandmothers, we want to spiritually inspire our grandchildren and prayer. It's a time in our life when we can focus. Like I said, nobody loves my children like I love them, and nobody loves my grandchildren like I love them, and nobody's gonna pray for them like I'm pray for them because my heart is burdened with them, the cares, their cares and their situations in their life. And so as grandparent, it is the prime time to take your children to an altar and, to fight for them. To fight for them in the spirit, spiritually, to win the warfare, because there's a lot out there, fighting against our children, even grown children and grandchildren. There's a lot that they have to face, things that even I didn't face. The world has just become so, out of control, and, they need a special touch from God and a special strength, and they need wisdom to know how to, properly, train their children and teach their children. And, I pray all the time, Lord, give Corey and Mara the wisdom that they need. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's just easier to say yes or just give them what they want, give them the wisdom to know how to discipline them and how to teach them not just to live for God, but to love living for God. And there's a difference. And so, as a grandparent, I would admonish you to find a place in prayer that you've never had, a place you've never been to, and focus on your family. You're fading out. I'm fading out. And if I don't leave a tribute to those children, if I don't, what they need something to look at. They need something to remind them, you know. And so I feel the importance and the heaviness of keeping my family and my grandchildren covered in prayer. And I think that's one of the main things of parenthood. And besides that, just play, 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 and have fun and enjoy your time. Every little hug, enjoy it. Every little conversation. I just get so tickled with some of the things that they come up with, some of the things that they say. Enjoy that. Enjoy having a little more time. Enjoy that, and they'll give you joy, and they'll give you a reason to keep living.
I love everything that you shared on that is so good, and I know as a parent listening to this, hearing that and knowing that a grandparent and, that your parents are praying for you and going, like you said, in that spiritual place that maybe you've never even known because it is needed.
Oh yeah.
And we feel it as parents parenting our children and, their grandchildren. We can feel those prayers and we need those prayers.
Yes.
And speaking on that, you had mentioned, leaving something for your grandchildren and for your family. What legacy or what is something that you hope to leave for them and that you hope you're remembered for?
Well, I hope that I'm remembered by by my prayers. I hope that my children and my grandchildren will look back and say, my mother or my grandmother was a praying woman. And I want to leave them a legacy of never giving up because, if you really love your children, first of all, if you really love God, you won't give up. But second of all, if you really love your children and really love your grandchildren, you're not going to give up and throw in the towel when there are opportunities to do so. I've battled some hard things in life, some deep, deep hurts that's too deep to even explain. But, and I'm human. I can't say that there wasn't a time and that I thought, well, I'll just do this or I'll just do that. And first of all, I thought, no, I love my Lord too much to fail my Lord. But then I thought about my children and I thought about the fact that they're going to have some hard times. They're going to be hurt somewhere in life. They're going to have some disappointments. They're going to be let down. And they're going to have some times to where they feel like, what's the use? What's the use? Just throw in the towel. I want them to be able to look at me and say, my mom wasn't perfect. My grandmother wasn't perfect. I mean, I don't claim to be. None of us are. But I'm saying I want them to be able to look back and say, I seen her weather the storm, but I did not see her waver. And sometimes um, you have to fight to cultivate that. It's not easy sometimes. It's not easy for me today to, it's not easy to smile every day. It's not easy to not wobble a little bit, you know, along the way. But I want them to be able to look at me and say, my mother never quit and she never wavered and she never gave up. Because I want that rooted in them, that there's not ever anything in my life that I will go through that I cannot stand and I cannot be strong and I cannot make it through and I will never give up. My mother did it. She weathered the storm. She stood. She showed me. I want to show them that you can do it. There's nothing worth losing your soul, and it doesn't matter what you go through. You can keep the right attitude. You can keep the right spirit. You can uh, possess a smile and kindness and love in your heart, no matter what you go through. I want them to know that I prayed for them, and I want them to know that I never gave up.
Saying that about, like, if you love the Lord, but then if you love your children, that's one thing I always look at. I'm like, I do love the Lord with all of my heart, but I cannot fathom not living this way knowing that I am not teaching my children how to live for God and how to live for truth. And you had mentioned earlier too about such a difference between loving it and living it.
That's right.
And I tell the Lord every single day in prayer meeting, I love this way.
Love is
I
love.
love living for you. I love every sacrifice that it would be, everything that I do personally to show my love for you, Lord. I love it. I've heard Bishop preach this before and I pray it. I love my uncut hair. I love dressing modestly. I love everything that the world would try to tell you different. I say, Lord, I love it. And I want my kids to love it. And I want them to see me love it. Because when they see you, like you were mentioning, when they see that you love this, they'll love it.
They'll love it. Yes, they will.
It's no burden.
Right. They'll cultivate a love for what you love.
It is so true and so good. Everything that you have said today has been absolutely amazing. I knew it would be. I knew it would be good. In fact, my kids had asked me who I had on the podcast this week. And I told them, I said, I'm going to have Sister Townley come on and speak. And Ada's first words were, oh, that's going to be so good. We love you so much. And it's been so good. Everything that you've spoken has been an encouragement, no doubt. And for every season, I love that you've spoken to every single season of motherhood. But what is one thing that you would want to leave all of us today in the Unashamedly You community?
I would say that seasons come and go so swiftly. Embrace every season and be the best you in every season that you can be. And my testimony that I would like to leave you with is a chorus of a song that we sung last night. There's never been a day that you weren't in it. There's never been a minute that you were not in it, God. There's never been a moment that the Lord has not been in it. There's never been a time, God, when you didn't show up and see me through. And that's my testimony, and that's many of our testimonies. Through every season of life, through every trial, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. There's going to be wonderful days and there's going to be sad, trying days. But through every minute, through every moment, in every time, He's in it. He's in it with us, and He's going to bring us through. Lord bless you. Thank you so much, Sister Jamie, for having me.
You have inspired and encouraged me, and I know that you have so many others that have listened as well. Thank you so much for being with us today on the podcast. I pray that this episode has blessed, helped, and encouraged you this week. And I also wanted to tell you, if you have not yet signed up for the completely free introductory coaching call, go and do that now. So many of you have been reaching out to me lately saying, hey, I want to do that coaching call, but I am not sure exactly what to do or how to sign up. Send me a message on Instagram, message me on social. We can get it scheduled for you, or go to unashamedlyyou.com, select the coaching tab, and that coaching session is on there where you can sign up for the first one for free. If you're wondering what these coaching sessions are for, you guys, they are for someone that is wanting to start something even when you're not sure what that looks like. I tell people this every single day. It feels like, hey, you are allowed to not know what you're wanting to do. You just have a feeling and you're wanting to start something. Meet up with me. Let's chat about those things. If you've got something started and you're just kind of feeling you're at a wall, you're just stuck, or you want some encouragement and you're just wondering, hey, I'm not sure if I need weekly coaching sessions or not. Let's hop on a call. Let's talk it out. It's for free. There's no reason not to hop on there. So I cannot wait to help you start living out those dreams, fulfilling that calling that you are feeling. And let's continue to make this the year that you live in faith over fear. Go be unashamedly you.